What's going on, everybody? You have Tone here, back with some more Draft League content, and it has been a while since I have uploaded anything on my channel. It has been a good 6 months, give or take, since the last thing I ever uploaded to this channel. I hope you guys are doing well. Like I said, it has been a while, of course, between the last time I recorded anything and now. It is currently 2023. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and all that stuff has come and gone and all that stuff. But yeah, I am alive. I am here. I hope you guys are doing well. And not exactly the way I wanted to, bring back my channel, just jumping right into another draft league. But at the same time, I felt as though this year I definitely wanted to bump up what I do with the channel, at least try to balance trying to record stuff as well as keep my IRL life in check as well. So that's pretty much what the grind has been all about between now and the last time I recorded. So it has been a while. I haven't done any draft league content, or let alone played in any draft league format since the summer. So yeah, I took a whole 6 months off of doing anything draft league related, just to reset myself, get myself ready for Generation 9. I hope you guys have enjoyed Scarlet and Violet so far. It has been a blast. Granted, it has been also a bit skeptical in terms of the new mechanic into terrestrialization and how Pokemon can work with the new mechanic and all that stuff. So yeah, it's really going to be really exciting to try out this new format, this new mechanic in this new generation. And I do promise the team I did draft for this league, I am back in the YCL. If some of you remember, I did take part in the YCL a while back in 2021, back in season number 4. And granted, I didn't do that well. I think I went like 2-3 in the shortened season, and I missed the playoffs. So here's a little bit of a chance of a run back here in season number 7 in the first official draft league for me in Generation 9 for the Miami Malamarlins. So yeah, with all that rambling out of the way, let's jump right into the good stuff, and that is a team I ended up drafting for this league. So just to quickly run down how the YCL works. So there are 16 coaches in the league, and each of those coaches have been split into 2 separate divisions of 8 coaches. And those 8 coaches will then draft a team of 10 Pokemon with a budget of 82 points. And you must draft 10 Pokemon. Outside of that, after the draft is over, you are then given a budget of 13 points to allocate Terra Captains. Now, it's only these Pokemon that you declare as your Terra Captains that can terrestrialize and use the mechanic. On top of that, there are some other thing to note is within the YCL, this league is different as opposed to any other standard draft league, as opposed to the fact that this league also comes with item clause. And what that means is during battles, no 2 Pokemon can hold the same item. So no 2 Pokemon can have leftovers, no 2 Pokemon can have a choice band, choice scarf, specs. The list goes on and on. No 2 Pokemon can have the same item, which does make team building a lot more trickier in terms of being able to mix things up, and it also keeps the meta fresh. That way you don't just slap 6 heavy duty boots on your Pokemon and call it a day. So I do like the concept of making things a bit more tactical in terms of team building and battling. So it is going to be a grind. I am happy to get back in the Wi-Fi scene. Sucks that there's no workaround for the 20-minute timer, but it is what it is. So with all that being said, let's jump into the team I ended up drafting for the YCL season number 7. So first and foremost, after we got separated into our pools of 8, excuse me, we randomized the draft. I had the 3rd pick in my pool. There was one Pokemon I was hoping to actually use in in my first league back, and that Pokemon was Iron Valiant, because all Pokemon was allowed in this league, with the exception being the cover legendaries of Koraidon and Miraidon. Other than that, though, every other Pokemon is fair game, with some exceptions. Like Houndstone is allowed, but you cannot run Last Respects on Houndstone, so it is a bit more limited in terms of viability. But regardless, I was really hoping to get Iron Valiant with my first pick. Unfortunately, Iron Valiant was taken number 2 overall, which really sucked. But I did have a backup that I was definitely looking forward to trying in Generation 9. So with the first pick in Generation 9 for the Miami Malamarlins, I ended up snagging up Roaring Moon. So yeah, kicking off our season with a really strong Pokemon, Roaring Moon, or Paradox Salamence, whatever you want to call it. This Pokemon is really good. Very solid typing in Dragon and Dark. Massive 139 attack, 119 speed, 105 HP, and it is just very solid in terms of offensive typing, defensive typing, and it does a multitude of things, which is why I like is having a Pokemon with some versatility. Aside from being able to run Dragon Dance, it can do a Choice Band set, it gets momentum with U-Turn, and it does get various coverage options as well, stuff like Iron Head for Fairy types, so it's not walled by them. It also gets other coverage like Earthquake, and it can also run a set like Booster Energy. For those who don't know, with Booster Energy, Pokemon with the ability Photosynthesis or Quark Drive can consume this one-time item, and it boosts its highest stat by 1 stage. If it's speed, it gets boosted by 1 stage. If it's any other stat, it gets boosted by 30% of that stat. So, other than that, though, Roaring Moon, very solid start to my draft. Very strong, very hard hitting, and very fast, which is something sometimes I do neglect. With some of my drafts is I do neglect speed quite a bit. So having a Pokemon this fast, this strong, and this powerful is very nice for my team to start out with. And it's going to be a theme. I am going to go a bit crazy with my points early on, but bear with me for a bit. So, moving on from Roaring Moon, I knew the next thing I wanted to try to stack up early on was a Steel type. And granted, the one Steel type I was looking to try to pair up with Roaring Moon was Iron Treads. Unfortunately, Iron Treads did not make it back to me. So I was really trying to scramble here, trying to get a good Steel type to come back and try to pair up with with Roaring Moon to, at the very least, try to have some sort of synergistic value with my first 2 picks. And luckily for me, there was one Steel type that did end up making it all the way back to me in round number 2, which sort of surprised me considering it's really good. And I honestly wasn't expecting this at all, so I figured why not take it. Performing near perfect synergy with Roaring Moon, I snagged up a round 2 Goldango. So yes, we have Roaring Moon and Goldango on the same team, the sort of Generation 9 version of Hydreigon Aegislash. Both Roaring Moon and Goldango cover each other's weaknesses almost perfectly, with the exception being Ground, which Roaring Moon does not resist. But nonetheless, though, Roaring Moon plus Goldango felt like a very solid start to my team. Aside from covering each other's weaknesses, Goldango was just a very solid Pokemon in general. A hard-hitting special attacker with that 133 special attack. Great typing in Steel and Ghost. And overall, very solid stats. Average HP, solid bulk in 95 defense, 91 special defense, and of course its unique ability in Good as Gold, making it immune to all status moves. And yeah, like I said, it's just really nice to have a Pokemon like Goldango pairing it up with with Roaring Moon, just be able to have that way of switching in and dealing with the fairy types that can give Roaring Moon some trouble. Roaring Moon can U-turn and bait in those fairies to get in Goldango, and it can go for some powerful Make It Rains, Shadow Balls, and it also gets access to stuff like Nasty Plot, can recover. And it's not limited to just being offensive, it can be defensive as well if I wanted to go that route. But overall, just a very solid Pokemon, very nice typing, very good ability. And I feel like Roaring Moon plus Goldango is going to be a very, very solid core for me heading into the rest of my picks. So with that being said, I did get a bit crazy now with my round 3 pick. Kind of felt out of the loop, not really out of the loop, but the whole new toy syndrome kind of dropped in for me, and I wanted something else to make up for the lack of me getting Iron Shreds. And I could have gotten a Fairy type here, but I felt like I could have waited a little bit longer, even though Fairy types are kind of limited in this game. There was one Fairy type I was looking at, and I felt like if I got it now, it would be a bit of a stretch, a reach for round 3, so I tried to hold off a bit for at least one more round. So instead, with my round 3 pick, I ended up snacking up Great Tusk with my round 3 pick. Now, at the time of me picking Great Tusk, I don't know what was coming over me when I tried. I was just trying to like put pieces together. I knew at some point I wanted a ground type. And quite honestly, I wasn't looking at Great Tusk originally because I thought at this point it might have been gone already. But at the same time, Great Tusk does provide me with a few things. First and foremost, it gives me a ground and fighting type. It gives me a stealth rocker. It gives me a remover with rapid spin, which is another thing that I usually like neglect with my drafts is the lack of drafting removal. And yeah, it's sort of the Great Tusk is sort of the whole Landorus-Therian Buzzwole sort of hybrid, so to speak, of Generation 9, just having the ground typing, making it immune to electricity, the ice weakness and the fairy weakness, stuff like that is covered by Goldango. And for the most part, just having the ability to be not only a stealth rocker, it can be a hard-hitting attacker with Choice Band Earthquakes or Headlong Rush. Close combat, just nice there for added coverage. And like I said, nice removal, gets knockoff, gets access to coverage like Ice Spinner, which is just essentially just like a removing terrain, but there's not much terrain to speak of. But other than that though, Great Tusk just felt like a solid mon to pair up with Roaring Moon and Goldango, and having Moon and Great Tusk in conjunction with Goldango to like pressure those fairy types can be pretty devastating and pretty much a menace for any team that wants to handle these first 3 mons in general. So yeah, that is Great Tusk. Nothing much else to say about that in this regard. Moving on, round number 4. I feel like stacking up my fairy type now because fairy types are few and far in between this generation, at least until the eventual DLC drops. But when it came to fairy types, there was only one fairy technically 2 fairies I was looking at, but the primary fairy type I was going for is the tried and true, the one and only, had to snag it up, and that Pokemon is none other than Gardevoir. It's just commonplace for when it comes to me using Gardevoir. This Pokemon is just so ridiculously good and ridiculously underrated. I was surprised they had this Pokemon at 8 points. Yes, it's not a pure fairy type in the sense, but being able to be a Pokemon that 4 times resists those fighting moves is really, really solid. And to me, Trace is still one of the best abilities in the game, especially with the new Pokemon coming in. So stuff like Chi-Yu, for example, it can trace Beads of Ruin and make Pokemon that normally could switch into Gardevoir don't want to come in on Gardevoir, especially with the hard-hitting 125 special attack in conjunction with Trace, and could potentially drop its special defense if it comes to a situation where I'm in a Chi-Yu matchup. And yeah, this thing is just really ridiculously good, and I feel like it's one of the more underrated fairy-type Pokemon in the game, especially considering that it was only 8 points. I felt that was a bit low for Gardevoir, but at the same time, I'm not complaining either. I felt like it was a cheap, low, no-risk option for my team, and just having another special attacker that I feel extremely familiar with and comfortable using. So yeah, it felt like a no-brainer at this point to snag up Gardevoir and put it on my team, completing my Dragon Fairy Steel Core in a sense. So yeah, It's just very, very solid, very versatile. Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, Healing Wish, Trick Room, Calm Mind, and even got access to Aura Sphere, so it doesn't even have to worry about trying to revenge kill steel types with Focus Blast. So that's a good nifty option to have as well. And it still gets access to Teleport, unlike most of the other Pokemons that had it but lost it. So yeah, really, really solid Pokemon, very versatile, and can't wait to try Gardevoir again for Generation 9. Moving on, round number 5. I didn't really have anything going for the most part. Initially, I also could have snagged up Torkoal with this next pick, just because of the fact that Torkoal has Drought. It's a fire type, that does have the ability to activate Roaring Moon and Great Tusk Photosynthesis, so I don't have to run Booster Energy. But I didn't really feel comfortable being in a situation where I'm forced to bring Torkoal just to help out Roaring Moon or Great Tusk, and it felt more right for me to try to go along the route of getting the best Mon synergistic wise, as opposed to just getting a Pokemon for the sake of helping my other Pokemon do better. So with that being said, I did snack up a fire type with my round 5 selection, but in the sense of being something that can take advantage of everything else I currently have. So round 5, I snagged up my first Terra Captain Volcarona. Being able to have Terra Volcarona with this draft is really, really nice, just because I have the option to terrestrialize it into any typing I want. While the nerf to having no Roost is one thing, it still gets access to Recovery and Morning Sun, so those bulky Quiverdance sets are still really, really good to have in the long run. And in conjunction, like I said, with the ability to terrestrialize, I can terrestrialize my Volcarona into any typing I want to cover for stuff that it normally cannot beat in the long run. And those Pokemon are mostly limited to stuff like opposing bulky fire types, which I do feel like I cover pretty well because of the fact that I do have Great Tusk. Water type Pokemon I can cover pretty well just by wearing it down with my other 4 Mons. So yeah, and then having Volcarona in the back is a very solid win condition, especially, like I said, in conjunction with terrestrialization. This thing can be a big menace for opposing teams to deal with, just because of the fact that it's a Quiverdance user. It can boost its offense and its speed, making it that much more threatening, and the fact with terrestrialization, it can be an even bigger menace with the fact that it can make itself have a better typing than the current one it has in Bug Fire. Other than that, there's not much else to say. It's just a very solid Pokemon. I felt very comfortable making this, picking up Volcarona, making it my Terra Captain, and I feel like it does really well in terms of what I currently have to offer. In terms of support for Volcarona, all my Pokemon just feel like they pair up really, really well from an offensive and even sort of a defensive perspective. So yeah, that is the Volcarona. Now, as you can see, my first 5 picks came up to a whopping 64 points. So, like I said earlier, I did get a bit crazy with my points, and I kind of neglected actually trying to save up. So the next few picks are going to be a bit low budget to make up for the fact that I do need to pick 5 more Pokemon, and I only have 18 points to do so. But I felt as though with the rest of my Mons that I did end up selecting with the points that I had left over, I felt pretty comfortable with what I got out of my budget. So, round number 6, I ended up snacking up Arboliva, and this Pokemon does give me it gives me a grass type, so I have a ground resist. It gives me a normal type, so I have a ghost resist, and on top of that, it does have pretty good access. It has some pretty cool abilities. First off, Seed Sower. So basically, if this Pokemon takes damage, is hit by contact, then it automatically sets up grassy terrain, which would normally be a hindrance to a Pokemon like Great Tusk, but Since it does get access to Headlong Rush, it's not affected by Grassy Terrain weakening it, and on top of that, it does get Grassy Terrain recovery on top of that, then again, so does all the rest of my team, and it also benefits Goldango since it does cover for the ground weakness that it does have, and it just was really, really nice in general. And the fire weakness is covered by Roaring Moon, and I can terrestrialize Volcarona into something that resisted fire. Other than that, though, Arboliva also does have some pretty solid special attack. It's nice and it's a good, solid, bulky mod in general, and it can be a hard-hitting wall breaker as well. It's not limited to just being defensive. Offensive, Arboliva is also a very, very strong concept in prep, and hopefully I will be able to utilize such an offensive force like Arboliva during my time with this team at the very least. It just felt nice to have something like this. Just to have that, like I said, having the ground resist and the ghost immunity felt a bit of a necessity. Not really a necessity, but at the very least the ground resist I felt was a bit more arbitrary to have. And if I could, like, say for example, terrestrialize Volcarona into a grass type, it gets Grassy Terrain, it's Grass Stab, Grassy Terrain boosted, Giga Drains, and all that stuff. So yeah, just a example to give there for Arboliva. But yeah, nothing much else to say about that. Just a really cool mod in general, I think. So yeah, moving on, round number 6. I mean, not round 6, round 7. Round 7, I ended up snagging up the Oricorio. So Oricorio was basically not really a necessity, but Oricorio I felt was one of the low budget mods I felt was nice for my team, because for the most part I didn't have a flying type. 1, 2, it does give me access to I do have access to all forms of Oricorio, so I'm not just limited to one. I do have access to Bile, Pow, Pom Pom, and Sensu. The only thing that sucks is the fact that I do not have the ability to terrestrialize Oricorio, but other than that, though, the typing is just really, really nice to have. The added fighting resist felt really, really good for my team. And it's not just limited to being an offensive set, bulky max HP sets, similar to some stuff that it runs back in Generation 7 in PU. I'm very comfortable using those types of sets to be a bulky setup mod, especially considering the fact that Oricorio does get access to Quiver Dance in this generation. On top of that, it also gives me a Defogger. It's one of the few Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet that still gets access to Defog, especially considering that no Pokemon for Generation 9 can defog themselves. Regardless, just a very solid mon, just for the fact that I do have the variety of picking which Oricorio can come for which matchup, depending on if it fits the bill or not. But like I said, really solid mon, low budget flying type, can't go wrong with that. Yeah. And hopefully I get to put in some work with Oricorio, especially considering the new toys that it did get. Speaking of mons that did get access to new toys and I'm happy to try out, my round 8 selection just so happens to be Swalot. Now, for the record, Swalot was not my first choice. My original pick wanted to be Muck. Unfortunately, Muck got taken the same round that I picked Swalot, but I am totally okay with Swalot. Because, like I said, for 3 points and having a grounded poison type, it's not bad. 2, Swalot does get access to a few new toys. One of them is Toxic Spikes, which it originally did not have. Second of all, it also now gets access to Swords Dance, another move it did not have in previous generations. On top of that, it has an expansive move pool as it is on both the physical and the special side. And even more so, it also gets access now to Body Press. So, yeah. This is one of the main reasons why I picked up Swalot, because it was a low-budget grounded poison. It has many versatile sets, and I really, really wanted to try out Swalot. If only for the fact of being able to Swords Dance, to be able to have It could be a bulky Assault Vest user, which is probably the main set you might see on Swalot, but more so, I do want to give SD Swalot a shot. I would love to try to pull off some crazy stuff with an SD Swalot. As dumb as that sounds, I am all for this mod. It may not look the best stat-wise, but at the same time, though, you can't go wrong with what it offers. And to be perfectly honest, I'm all good with having a low-budget mod like Swalot. All things considered, I'm not going to lie, this is going to be a fun mod to try to use in this league. So, with that, I only have 5 points left. I only ended up using 4 of them, although it might be a bit of an error there. But regardless, 2 more picks to go. Round number 9, Sudowoodo. Now, Sudowoodo was literally only there for... I picked up Sudowoodo for a few reasons. One, I did have 1 point left over for Terra Captain, so I figured make Sudowoodo a Terra Captain. Nothing wrong with that. 2, they gave me a rock type. I didn't have that either. 3, my only other hazard setter aside from Swalot was Great Tusk, and I wanted a stealth rocker that wasn't just limited to bringing Great Tusk. So I figured, why not Sudowoodo? On top of that, Sudowoodo also gets access to spikes. I don't know why, but then again, they gave pretty much most Pokemon in this generation Stealth Rock and spikes anyway, and I figured, of all the low tier stuff that was left over, and the fact that I needed an extra Stealth Rocker, I figured the most viable option for what I wanted and for the points I had left, I figured, why not just pick up Sudowoodo? It may not come that often, heck, it may not even come at all, but best believe I will try at least once or twice to try to bring this mon and make it put in some work. It just feels like it feels like it will do something, especially with it being a Terra Captain. But at the same time, though, a Pokemon's only as good as the person that's using it, and hopefully I am good enough to use this Pokemon. So that is a Sudowoodo, and now for the last pick in the draft, of all the typings I did not have, the one typing I knew I needed to have was a water type. I do not have that, so with only 4 points left, there was only one Pokemon I was looking at with 4 points that I know well, I felt comfortable using it, I've done it before in the past, and I'm really happy to try it out and actually show it in an actual setting, in an actual YouTube league that I can actually like upload regularly. And that Pokemon is the one, the only, the mascot. I got my Clawitzer. Had to do it. This is the truth. This is the canon, the mascot, the boy, everything. It is a breaker. It is a water type. It gives me priority with Aqua Jet. It has U-turn for momentum, and it has all the coverage it needs to essentially break past most things. It's not the most flashy Pokemon, but at the same time, though, Clawitzer has the good balance of being both offensive and tanky enough to take hits. And of course, Mega Launcher is the truth, especially considering that there's no Scald in this game, except if you only include Volcanion. So I will be relying a lot more on Water Pulse, which does get boosted by Mega Launcher. Same thing with Dark Pulse, same thing with Dragon Pulse, same thing with Aura Sphere, and even coverage like Ice Beam, Sludge Bomb, and I already mentioned Flip Turn for momentum, and not Flip Turn, U-turn. Flip Turn is not in the game at the moment, and Aqua Jet for priority, because my priority options are already extremely limited as it is. I think only 4 of my Pokemon. I have to check and see if Great Tusk gets Ice Shard. I'm not entirely sure, but other than that, though, I had to snag up the boy, had to get the mascot. I'm really happy that I did. I'm actually getting really giddy right now with the Clawitzer. But anyway, with that being said, guys, that is the full team for the Miami Malamarlins in Season 7 of the YCL. My first draft league of Generation 9. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the team, the draft, all that good stuff. I'll take both positive and negative comments. You do not have to hold back on my account. It's also really special time for me, especially at the time of this video going up. It will be January 14th, which just so happens to be my birthday. So not exactly how I wanted to come back on YouTube, with me doing my first video back being uploaded on my birthday, but hey, it's something. I'll take it. Thank you guys so much for the ride. It has been a tumultuous few years of uploading, going AWOL and all that stuff, but I feel as though I owe it to you guys, I owe it to the YCL for accepting me, that to be consistent in my videos, be consistent in my uploading, and hopefully provide you guys with some entertaining battles. So if you guys are hype for this team, leave a like, drop a comment, click that subscribe button, because we are looking for that championship. Granted, I already have 2, but that's a different story. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Check out all the other coaches in the description down below. Be sure to subscribe to those guys as well. And until the next time, till week number 1 of the YCL, this is Tone, signing out for now. Peace out.